Welcome, dear audience, to This Week in Clown World, the series dedicated to reliving the events of the clown world because yes, it really happened and no, we weren't dreaming. So what a week it has been, just when you thought things were starting to calm down a little bit. You know, after the Christmas market attack in Germany, then the New Year's attack in New Orleans, and then the Brooming Gang scandal reigniting after the court transcripts were revealed, and then the Southport trial where we all got to learn the horrors of what that poor little Christian choir boy from Wales did. Well, we now have a horrific plane crash to add to that list. Why can't we just have a normal week for once? Yeah, I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon, so as always, let's head straight to the Soviet Kingdom because there's an everyday clown show here, and no, it won't stop. Now, before going any further, I have a little story to tell you. When I was a young bigot, my mummy always said to me, "Hey LRCW, I need to talk to you about something very important. Son, if hordes of men on boats arrive at the shores of this once great nation without any form of identification and are also claiming to be children but also have fully grown beards, it is customary for us, the indigenous peasant population, to get them a National Express bus paid for by the taxpayers all the way to the local hotel where they'll get 3 meals a day and spending money with zero monitoring so they can quite literally do what they want. Because son, if we didn't, then that would make us hateful bigots." And I remember saying to her, "But mama, expecting fully grown men with beards from cultures that steal shite in buckets to respect our laws and customs is the same dumbassery that got all those girls gang raped by hordes of Pakistani men that the state covered up because of my diversity. We must have border protections and immigration thresholds to ensure the safety of the British people." Now you're probably thinking, right LRCW, that story was retarded and was entirely made up by you to make a point about the dangers of letting unknown people from backwards cultures roam freely within your country after arriving on a boat with no identification. Well, you would have been right. But that fake conversation with Mummy LRCW might as well have happened because just this week we got another lesson in how enriching it is to let boat people be housed right next to primary schools. And how we're all far-right bigots for having an issue with that. So to start our Great British Slog, we're gonna go to Northamptonshire, where a very bigoted letter was sent out to all the parents of young children who attend a primary school in Milton Keynes. And it said to them, "Hey guys, getting lots of reports that gangs of suspicious children with fully grown beards are hanging around the school gates during drop-off and pick-up times and have also been seen filming them. You might want to be aware of that. But don't worry, while they're inside the school, they're supervised at all times, so no need to panic. And we've also alerted the police, so this is a total non-issue." Alright, so you have boat people filming children outside of primary schools, which is not the first time this sort of shite has happened. So what are the police going to do about it? You know, because if anyone else was filming children outside of a primary school, I'm pretty damn sure they'll be arrested and put on a nonce register by now. Well, the British public got reassured by the police themselves. Ahem. Hi guys, although under our watch, thousands upon thousands of children got gang raped by Pakistani men, and we all knew about it and did nothing because of my diversity. This time, we assure you nothing bad will happen because we're going to educate the boat children with beards that hanging around primary schools and filming children is wrong and not a tradition within the Soviet Kingdom. Well, thought the people, what a really reassuring response. I bet all the parents with daughters felt really happy that there were going to be education seminars for fully grown children with beards that noncing is wrong. But when the darkness of night falls upon us and we are surrounded by weak men doing weak things, there is always a break within the clouds to shine down the light in hopes of a better tomorrow. Like instead of arresting all those nonces, the police are going to make sure the term blacklisted is no longer used within the police force because it's very, very mean and might offend black people, even though that word has absolutely nothing to do with race. For fuck's sake, have any of these white goons who keep coming out of this crap ever actually spoken to a black person? They don't care. You know, this is how ideologically captured our police force are these days. Within the village where my dad lives, there was a murder. And since at the time the police had nothing to go on, they started doing door-to-door canvassing to generate leads. And when they got to my father's house, they legit asked him, bearing in mind he's in his mid-60s with stubble and pretty much wears his shooting clothes all the time, whether or not he is presenting as a male today. I don't know, mate. Does he have tits and a vagina? If not, I'm pretty sure that's a male. And the worstliest part of it all was that the police officer also knew it was a bunch of shite, but his superiors are making him ask it. Alright, so the Soviet kingdom is full of utter pussies and a large majority of the population keep voting for them, therefore completing the cycle of weak men creating hard times. But if you thought that was enough for this week, then you were wrong. Dead wrong with AIDS, because it only gets dumbler. Now, it is absolutely no secret that the UK and the Frenchies have the worst love-hate relationship ever known in the history of knowing. If we weren't fighting each other, then we're teaming up to bomb somebody else. And when someone else picks on France, and it isn't us, we're like, oi you silly wanker, only we get to do that. And then we go defend our French brothers. Obviously with baguette swords. But history is history, you can't change it, and we all like to remember those who led us to victory in the many battles that have made us us. Like Lord Nelson, the king of all boat people who spanked Napoleon's ass so much it hurt, and thus resulted in the British being the dominant rulers of the waves and were hunting for all those spices in foreign lands. For glory! And part of our traditions is to name things after really cool things that have happened, like Waterloo Station, which for dirty foreigners may be a little bit confusing. Yes, water does go down the loo. But for us Brits, it was that time when we totally spanked Napoleon's ass again and we named an entire train station after it. Then there was the Battle Abbey, where dirty foreigners may think to themselves, okay, so where's this abbey and what weapon do I get? But to us Brits, it's a site where the historic Battle of Hastings took place, where the dirty French pulled a sneaky on us and actually won that war. You idiot should have never ran down that hill. Okay, great stuff. It's tradition to honor our battles and name things after it. That may be a little confusing for foreigners. But what has that got to do with the utter clown world we live in? Well, ain't that a story? Because as some may be aware, France and Britain had a 100-year war where everyone got really mad at each other for no reason, so went and fought each other. And this was the war when those plucky Brits pulled out their fucking throbbing longbows and completely dominated the French backsides. Until we didn't. But there was one particular battle when the Brits were outnumbered and still came out on top because the English longbow is the bestliest bow ever bowed in the history of bowing. Yes, the Battle of Agincourt in 1415. So fast forward 600 years later, those British blokes were like, hey, I really like this new submarine. Maybe we should honor our fallen and call it the HMS Agincourt. That's a great idea, thought everyone. It will show our enemies that our traditions of winning until we stop winning is the reason we ruled those waves. And from there on, there were street parties and Morris dancing across these fertile lands. Yeah, like fuck that happened because ye old sausage fingers and Keir Stalin said no on naming it the HMS Agincourt on the basis that it might make France cry. What is wrong with these utter toilet brains? France ain't gonna give two shits in 2025 about a battle that happened over 600 years ago, are they? And even worse,lier, an international embarrassment occurred because France won that war. So instead it will be now called the HMS Achilles because obviously that strikes fear into our enemies as we named it after a guy who had a massive weakness so straight up fucking died. We need our old Liz back. She would not put up with this pussy shit for 1 second. And to make this shite even worse,lier, where merely being English is an international hate crime, two of the world's most historic and greatest universities that have ever existed have fallen to the dumbassery of the modern day. Yes, Cambridge and Oxford University, the home of Stephen Hawking, Edwin Hubble and Charles Darwin, took one look at black people and thought to themselves, my god, these guys are retarded. They must be completely incapable of wiping their own asses, therefore we should lower our standards to suit the ones we enrolled for our diversity programs and not through merit because according to us, skin color is linked to intelligence. For fuck's sake, have these creeps not figured it out yet? The bigotry of low expectations is a superiority complex, which in other words is called fucking racism. Alright, so now we're lowering standards for no reason. What other dumb shite has the failed state gotten up to this week? Well, after the events of Southport last year and the resulting riots that ensued because everyone is sick to the back fucking teeth safe and how weak our leaders are, a lot of questions were being asked. Like, how could a country fail so badly at keeping its own citizens safe that a quiet Christian choir boy from Wales who didn't do nothing could go on to commit absolute atrocities? And how do we stop all those spicy boys from getting angry at the government for purposely putting the entire country in danger? Well, in walks Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary of the United Kingdom. And she was going to figure out what went wrong here by asking the civil service to come up with a report into extremism. And oh boy, a report they came up with. Now, for any of those outside of the Soviet Kingdom, you may be unaware of a certain phenomena that occurs within our failed state. Yes, the constant reminding that diversity is our strength, even if it does result in gang rapes, diversity stabbings, and mostly peaceful murders. And to make sure that those lines work, the police are instructed by their pronoun badge wearing superiors to go really soft on any cultural enrichers who may be naughty boys. Like the Manchester enrichers who broke a female police officer's nose and got away with it for months and only got charged because 6 months later the Reform Party still wouldn't shut up about it. All that time, social services removed children from other enrichers quoting an unsafe environment, so there were mostly peaceful enrichment protests that resulted in the state bowing down to them and returning the children, or when there was the Southport riots when local enrichers were walking around with knives and bats and the police politely asked them not to do it. Whereas the English people, furious that children were diversitied in Southport, got sent to prison for merely gesturing at police officers. Well, that whole thing is called two-tier policing, of course, where different groups are policed and sentenced depending on their race and nationality, like the man who was sent to prison for 2 years for having spicy stickers, whereas 3 women glorifying Hamas's attack on Israel got let free on a suspended sentence even though they are a prescribed terrorist group within the UK. But if you were to start asking, why are the policemen currently beating me with sticks for hurty words on the internet when our imported guests get suspended sentences for, let me check my massive list, assaulting a mother walking her 3-year-old son down the road and then culturally enriching her and hitting the 3-year-old child, all in broad daylight, when merely gesturing at police results in prison sentences? Well, if you asked any questions, you are indeed a far-right bigot. Or if you had any issues with Pakistani grape gangs noncing on children, then it's a hate crime to even consider it. Maybe it's time to get out of this place and leave all the toilet brains who voted for this to suffer the consequences of their actions. But while the Soviet Kingdom is inching ever closer to civil war after the state labelled the indigenous population extremist for not wanting their women and children being put in danger by the very people the government imported without any background checks, Sweden is really trying to undo all of their Otto SpaghettiOs because they too had their very own socialists. Yes, as mentioned in previous iterations of This Week in Clown World, the peaceful Nordic country of Sweden imported half of Somalia and then, to the absolute shock of no one, turned into Somalia. And as they try and regain control of their country and ensure the safety of their own citizens, which is literally the absolute basics of governing, their guests were having none of it and decided to blow up everyone, this time even worstlier than before. It's so bad over there. Not only are their prisons now full of the imported Swedishes, they have drawn up proposals to send criminals to foreign prisons just to cope with the numbers. Maybe they could just do seminars on how gang violence is totally wrong and not the Swedish tradition. Yeah, that will totally work. And to make it even worse still, there are so many bombings now, the media can't even keep up with reporting them all. And also, they're the gun crime capital of Europe. But if we were to head over to Germany just a week later after a 2-year-old was ended by an Afghan migrant with deportation orders, they're still wondering whether or not the AfD is really the problem here and not Angela Merkel's disastrous immigration policy of importing the entire third world with, once again, 0 background checks. Yes, the totally evil Alternative for Deutschland party who, let me check my notes, don't want children stabbed and women raped by mass imported clienteles who somehow get more protection than the native population. Or that's really putting the re in German re, as their government have managed to mental gymnastics their way into thinking protecting their own citizens is exactly the same as that 1940s Germany man's policies, so they must ban the party entirely in case they work in the interest of the German people. You know, they're going to save democracy in case the party they don't like is democratically elected. Yes, I remember once telling my mate that Europe is starting to resemble the early stages of the Soviet Union, with their constant persecution of private and public individuals who have spoken out against government narratives cameras, and he said I was talking shite. Yeah, sure mate, how did those Romanian elections go while we're at it? Oh yes, they just straight up fucking cancelled them because the people voted the wrong way. And of course it was all TikTok's fault, as let me check my never-ending list of notes. The totally far-right leader who won the first round used it during his campaign. Alright, enough of that. It is time we leave the sad state of Europe behind, because after all, the people were voting for this for years upon years, even though the canary in the coal mine was ringing so hard that this sort of shite was going to eventually happen, that it straight up fucking died. So let's head over to the land of the Freedom Eagles, because there is so much winning going on over there that if it carries on, I will be applying for refugee status. Well, there was shocking news that was dumped upon us this week. Shocking, I tell you, because, and you would never believe this audience, the CIA, who are meant to be one of the best intelligence services in the world, are now thinking to themselves, you know what, maybe COVID did actually come from that Wuhan virology research lab where they were specifically looking into the gain of function of coronaviruses and not that wet market the Chinese Communist government tried diarrheaing out on us. My God, for everyone with a functioning brain. That's incredible! It means the conspiracy theorists who were banned from social media and called far-right extremists by the shill government media were right again. Who would have thought? Next, they'll be telling us the crap scenes were poorly researched gimmicks and coercing the global population into getting it with propaganda and in some cases straight up fucking lies, while at the same time politicians who were promoting it also got kickbacks from Pfizer, was totally wrong and needs to be investigated. Yes, enjoy your preemptive pardon, Fauci. You have totally earned it along with all that money you got during the scamdemic. But coronaviruses or not, it was this week where that famous phrase, promises made, promises kept, came true once again, because the Freedom Eagles were told what all those fucking drones over New Jersey's were about. You know, after the Orange Man promised the world that he would reveal it. Well, it turns out they were all FAA authorized drones this entire time and were doing research and testing and all that. Great, said the entire population. So what are they researching then? Who knows? Maybe the aliens. But that wasn't the only win from the Freedom Eagles this week, for they also gave us the greatest fuck around and find out tale ever told. Now, as some of you may be aware from the LRCW channel, I am a father to a domestic terrorist known as Little Crap Riding Jr. And as a 2.5-year-old, he's testing a lot of those boundaries I am trying to put upon him. And as I am a responsible bigoted father, I tell the little shite, you either do as you're told or you are going to your room. And if he doesn't do it, and I have counted down from 3, off to his room he goes. Never give them an inch or they will sense weakness and all respect is lost. It is called reasonable discipline. So when the Gigaball Orange Man decides, you know what, all these illegals who came to my country and committed crimes against American people, well, here's a flight to fuck off me land. So within days of the Orange return, a task force of red-blooded Americans collected a whole bunch of Colombians with criminal records that previous administrations could have removed at any point, but didn't, and sent them packing all the way back to their socialist shithole country that the people voted for. Well, it didn't go to plan, as those military planes delivering the Colombian citizens back to Colombia were turned around because President Socialist said no. Oh, I bet he felt so big and strong to find the Orange Man's demands, and he fully expected his people to love him for it. But little did he realize the US is the most powerful country on earth, and so took one little look at Gustavo and said, not today, commie. By implementing 25% tariffs, visa revoking, banking sanctions, and travel bans with the order that those 25% tariffs will become 50% within a week. My God, Daddy Orange Man certainly put President Baby Pedro on that international naughty steps for the world to see. So what did Colombia do? Did they go whinging off to the UN? Or did they go crying to China? Nope, they immediately stood down, apologized, and then sent a presidential plane to go pick up the illegal aliens. Seriously, what did they expect? The Orange Man is like internationally recognized for not fucking around and making people find out. But the best is yet to come, because after international humiliation, they actually did a crying Wojak because their president went full leftist meme and posted an utter cry wank of drivel about how accepting their own criminals back into their country is really unfair or some kind of shite. Literally, no one cares. You fucked around and you found out. And so now that the entire world knows that the US is serious about their agenda, the Socialist Kingdom is still trying to give Mauritius the Chagos Islands, which holds one of the most important US military bases on, and the Orange Man is demanding that the deal doesn't go through. Yeah, this is gonna end really badly for the Socialist Kingdom. I guess we just want to be poor. Anyway, then we come to the final part of this week. The plane versus the helicopter crash, which I'll be honest about, there is far too much information coming out about all the DEI hiring and the understaffing that I think it will be better placed in next week's installment of This Week in Clown World, along with the confirmation hearings, because seeing Pocahontas accuse RFK of making money from suing Big Pharma when she literally took Pfizer kickbacks is the most hypocritical shite I've ever seen in my life. Big shout out to all my Patreon boys and guys. Every night I dream of us walking hand in hand on a beach while committing grotesque hate crimes. Love you all very much, Lee.
Subscribe button.
Is always right.